Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with another knife review for you. Today we have the Artisan Cutlery Centauri. Really excited to get my hands on this one. Thank you very, very much, Nick Shabazz, for loaning this to me. I do very much appreciate it. It may wind up costing me some money. Spoiler alert, I do really like this, but I do appreciate that he sent it out to me. It did come to him straight from Artisan, so I'll do the same preamble he does. You know, they knew they were sending it to Nick Shabazz, infinitely larger channel than mine. It may be the best quality control one they've ever made because they want to make sure that he gets a good one. Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they just sent him a random one, but I have to get that out there. Why I was excited about it is a Ray Laconico design. I love Ray's stuff. He's worked with a lot of manufacturers in the past. This is his first time working with Artisan, and it's a slight departure for Ray, I do have to say. It has this signature, you know, Ray Laconico cutout that's in a lot of his designs, not in all of them. It's not in the other one you're going to see shortly, but he has that in a lot. But other than that, it doesn't really look that much like a Laconico. Fairly simple handle shape, but it's not really exactly typical Laconico. It is also a front flipper, which he doesn't do much of that. And not only is it a front flipper, it's a pretty big one. And I do like that. I do like the size of it a lot because a lot of front flippers, it seems the trend now is they're getting smaller and smaller. This is a pretty good size. Now, on the Artisan Cutlery site, these were $266. We knew they would be cheaper when they hit actual other retailers. That is finally starting to happen. They are available on Knife Center right now, but they are a pre-order on Knife Center. But they're $199, so pretty reasonable price for S35 VN, titanium frame lock, carbon fiber, all that stuff. Can't really knock the price, ceramic ball bearings, all that. So that's great. I'm glad to know what they're finally actually going to cost when they hit more people's hands. And it's just a beautifully done knife. This blade is not at all Laconico. Lots of swedging and stuff like that. I love the blade on it, but it is not his usual design language. He had to move his logo back here to the backspacer. Normally it's on the spine of the blade, but with all this jimping and the swedging and stuff, obviously there's no room for that. The carbon's really nice. No issues there. The screws could be a bit fancier. If I'm being really super nitpicky, I guess the screws could be a bit nicer. But the titanium lock side, I didn't even know this until I took it out of the package that Nick sent me. He may have shown this, but again, I didn't watch his video because I try not to if I know I'm going to have the knife. I really love the milling. It is really well done, and it just looks great. The pocket clip looks amazing. It's just a beautiful thing. I really do love almost everything about the overall aesthetics. Some people don't like their logo. I don't have a problem with it. And then the other side, you just have that tiny little bit, you know, just to say, you know, Sear lumber and what steel it is. Like I said, S35 VN. It is also available in a VG10 Damascus for exactly the same price. So I think this is the one I would have chosen anyway. I'm not always a giant Damascus fan, just the look of it, but normal times, like even if no matter what the steel the Damascus is made out of, they charge a lot more for it. Same price, S35 VN satin or VG10 Damascus for $199. So not too bad. And also, a little shout out to Artisan, little golf clap that you actually say what your Damascus is made of. A lot of people don't. They just say Damascus and they don't say what the primary steels are. They say, no, it's mostly VG10. So good for them for doing that. Now let's do some specs and size comparisons before we get too much farther. We have an overall length of just a tiny little hair over 8 inches, blade length just under 3.5 inches, blade thickness of 0.126 inches, and if you want to be really super precise, and a weight of 3.6 ounces. So a little over that ounce an inch that we want, but it's not by enough to matter at all. Now, size comparisons, we'll bring out our usual Spyderco sandwich. To start out, we have the Paramilitary 2 and the Para 3. You can see this is a pretty good sized knife, especially for a front flipper. Like I say, you see front flippers this long, but rarely this long and this thick that work as well as this. So I think that's pretty cool. And then we'll bring out our Benchmades. We have your full-size Griptilian and the full-size Bug Out. This is the CF Elite version. that I thought I lost, but I didn't tell you guys, but I found it the other day, so that's great. But you can see, again, this is a really good sized knife. It is a completely normal mid-size EDC. And then the only other Laconico I have at the moment, but honestly, one of the biggest hits he ever had. This is the drop / mass drop, depending on when you bought it. Keen, made by We Knives, but you can see it's even a little bit bigger than the Keen. And this was pretty big for a Laconico, so that is a pretty big step for him. And he's had some that are larger, for sure. But normally he kind of works in this size at the biggest, and yeah, it's a pretty big departure from me. As you can see, like, this is a typical Laconico. It doesn't have the groove in it, but other than that, usually there's very simple, very nice, nothing wrong with that. You can see the handle shape kind of echoed a little bit, but yeah, that blade is completely a big step out of his comfort zone, and you know, good on him for doing that. Now, lastly, I'll bring out a couple of other front flippers that are kind of more typical of what you're seeing in front flippers lately. Yes, there are a few that are longer, but this is the Civivi McKenna and the Boost Blades Mini Smoke. Now, of course, I said mini smoke. That indicates there's a full-size smoke that is more this length, but is still very slender like this. You get like the Real Steel Metamorph is about this length, but a lot more slender than this. So you can see it is a bit different for a front flipper. Now let's talk about the individual bits of this knife. First of all, the most important part, the blade. S35VN, absolutely good to go steel. No problems there whatsoever. Pretty thin blade stock. Like I said, it's like just a bit over 0.12 inches. Fairly thin behind the edge, 22, 23 thousandths. Not like, you know, mind-blowingly, you know, like 14 or 15 thousandths like you see with Civivis and Wies a lot, but still pretty thin behind the edge. And with that thin blade stock and that really high flat grind, it still slices like a dream. And the edge, I was extremely impressed with. I actually asked Nick if he sharpened it, said he didn't. So it is super, super sharp. The sharpening choil is, they nailed it. That's completely fine to work with. I can definitely work with that. No problems there. A little bit of flat, easier to grab onto depending on your sharpening system. No problems there. It's the tip is also pretty freaking robust, I do have to say. No problems with the tip there. Good piercing tip. I really do like the blade on this a whole lot. That swedge looks cool. No issues with the blade at all. The blade is definitely a very emphatic thumbs up. And pretty much so are the ergos. One tiny little thing, but Ray always does a really good job with ergos. This is no exception. It fits in my hand extremely well. The jimping on the spine of the blade is exactly where I want it to be. You can choke up a little bit if you want to, which is nice. There's no choil, but there is a kind of a landing spot there for that that's plenty large enough for most fingers. My fingers are fairly skinny, but I do have a large size glove hand. It is a thin handle, but it fills my hand completely fine. I have really freakishly long fingers, and it works excellently. I just really like using this, and it just, you feel like locked in, like you can really do some stuff with it. You can really push hard on it, and it feels like it wants it, and I do like that. The balance is great. This pocket clip is like non-existent in your hand. It's so well contoured, you just don't feel it a bit. I think the ergos are excellent. The only tiny little thing I have, and the ways that I actually handle it don't bother me a bit. But I could see maybe if you had really fat fingers or something, and it would be super easy to fix anyway. Right here, this edge is very abrupt. It's a bit sharp. You know, 2 seconds with a file, and it would be fine. It doesn't bother me because I'm usually gripping it back here or up here, so I'm not on it. And I think that's how 90% of people would be, but maybe you're in that 10% that you might feel that a little bit. But other than that, you know, it's completely fine ergonomically. I have really, that's the only tiny little issue I have, and I'm really kind of nitpicking there. Now, as far as it carries, again, very thin and fairly light. No flipper tab because it's a front flipper, so that's nice. The pocket clip tension is nigh on perfect, as is the ramp on it. It's super easy to get out of the pocket. It's very easy to carry. It's very thin. Like I said, it's light enough. Super easy to get your hand past for the size that it is, especially for the height of it, you know, because it's a fairly tall blade. I really do like carrying it. It is a joy to carry. Not deep carry, but pretty discreet what's sticking out of the pocket there. It's not like it's, I mean, it looks like it's probably a knife, but it's not. It is a fairly big pocket clip, but it's one that can be, it's large, but I don't think it still draws your eye. It just looks very fancy and nice. I don't think it's something that's going to freak somebody out too much. You know, if people are just glancing at your below the belt region for some reason. Again, the tension is great. I really, really do enjoy carrying this knife. It does pass the nap test. I will say that. I tested it yesterday afternoon. I fell asleep with it in my pocket and it didn't wake me up. So that's a good thing. As far as the action goes, I'm just gonna put this down and just say I'm in love with the actions. I like front flippers. I'm pretty good with front flippers, but some are easier than others. This is the easiest front flipper I've ever had, that I've ever handled. And I've handled most of them, and it is super easy. You can see you have just enough sticking out there, just the right amount of jimping. It's not ridiculously over the top, and it's just the easiest thing in the world to front flip. It really well and truly is, and it's almost completely drop shutty. As I just fail it because my fingers are slippery. But yeah, it's I love the action on this. Just fantastic. It's really, really good. The detent is perfect. You can't shake it out or anything, and it still does that. That was a really weak flip, and it still came open. As far as a front flipper goes, this may be my favorite action I've ever had in a front flipper. And again, you know, you saw earlier, I have a Boost Smoke, which is one of the best front flippers in the world. I think this is just as good. Maybe not going to say it's better, but it's just as good. And that's pretty impressive, especially on a blade this size. That's what I was kind of worried about when I looked at it. I looked at the specs and thought, okay, that big a blade, is it going to front flip okay? Because like I said, most front flippers are very slender if they're this long. And this is a fairly tall blade. It is a thin blade stock, but it's still more weight than you're usually trying to propel forward with a front flipper. Just awesome action. So what is my conclusion on this? I'll just make it quick. My favorite artisan I've ever handled. I like some of the Artisan Cutlery stuff. They do go a bit crazy with some things that aren't quite in my taste wheelhouse, but this is a Ray Laconico design. And I feel like that's kind of why, like I said, it's a bit out of Ray's wheelhouse, because you have Ray Laconico, one of the more conservative knife designers in the world, with Artisan Cutlery that loves to make some crazy stuff. And they just met in the middle with an amazing knife. I'm just going to say it is an amazing knife. It is definitely a contender for, you know, my over $100 knife of the year. I like it that much, and I was not expecting to. It was something I really wanted to try because I thought maybe it would be great, and it is. It's just great. Go check them out. They are starting to trickle out into dealers. If you just really, really want one now, you can go to the Artisan Cutlery website. You pay a little extra, but you'll be able to get one now. So keep an eye out for these. This is really good. I've been Brian. Have a good one.